Welcome, one and all, especially the one and the all. We are the Super Monkey Fighters. This is the What Would You Change Movie podcast. I am Loki. Somewhere on the screen is Feathers. Somewhere on the screen is Nugget. And this is our movie podcast show where we go through the things we like, things we didn't like, and things we would change about movies. This week, we are doing The Mitchells versus the Machines, which is a quirky, dysfunctional family's road trip is upended when they find themselves in the middle of the robot apocalypse and suddenly become humanity's unlikeliest last hope. It's directed by Michael Rianda and Jeff Rowe, written by Michael Rianda, Jeff Rowe, and Alex Hirsch. It stars Abbi Jacobson, Danny McBride, Maya Rudolph, Michael Rianda, Eric André, Olivia Colman, Fred Armisen, and Beck Bennett, as well as Chrissy Teigen, John Legend, Charlene Yee. Blake Griffin shows up in it. Conan O'Brien is apparently in it as well. Who wants to go first? Likes.
I'll say that I do like the art style of this. I found it actually really interesting. The idea that a lot of the time when like graphics and things would pop up to enhance like what someone was talking about, I actually really enjoyed that. I thought it was a nice flavor to add to the already interesting art style.
It's kind of trying to fit into like an art or a creator, like YouTube creator lifestyle sort of a thing, right?
Yeah, I would say that as well, but also I guess I'm thinking kind of like a matte painting in some parts where you have a lot of the more 3D style art, but then you kind of have like 3D matte paintings behind for some of the backgrounds. So I felt that was an interesting art style to incorporate into this movie along with the graphics. And along with that, I think that their portrayal of a dysfunctional family is something that I actually felt was on point, having come from a dysfunctional family, because I think that the scene that stands out is the diner scene where the robots are taking over and you have the perfect family and they're doing the yoga poses and they're flying and they're running away from the robots. And then you have the Mitchells who are trying to discuss it and they're like, all right, everyone kind of group hug family. And they're just like, no, I don't know what this is. What is this? And then them trying to actually execute the plan. I was like, yeah, that's actually how it would end up.
Yeah, to kind of build onto that, I thought the graphic novel overlay, 2D representations, I feel like it enhanced what you were already feeling while watching it, but it showed how the characters were feeling internally without everyone else knowing how they're feeling necessarily. Specifically, what Katie, because most of it's all based around her. Because she's the artist, so to speak, in the family, and I only imagine that like all those graphic representations were coming from her, and it was her graphic representation of how she's feeling in each of those scenarios, but it's portrayed throughout the entire show, and so it kind of gives that introspective into her take on those character interactions.
Yeah, it's the lens through which she sees the world.
Yes,
and I actually think that's a good way to describe it, like comic book graphic style of art incorporated into a more 3D style of animation.
It's more like a cell shading kind of effects where it's 3D modeled but looks like it's out of a comic book. That's really well done, and I really do like how that world kind of feels and how just the quirky look fits the quirky characters. That's the thing. I don't know if it's necessarily a dislike for me, but I wouldn't necessarily call them a dysfunctional family as much as I just call them a really quirky family. Like, yes, they're not the perfect family that does yoga and has all these, the social media standard of perfection.
Yeah.
But they're a family together. Like, they still spend time together, other than the fact that the dad and daughter don't quite understand each other anymore.
Well, and they really try and push, like, each of them kind of have their passions.
Yeah.
Like, Katie has her passions. What's the little kid's name? There was
Jurassic Kid.
Dinosaur Kid.
I was going to say, he's a dinosaur kid.
Aaron.
Right,
His name's Aaron. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So he has his passions, right, with dinosaurs. And then the father, Rick, is like
outdoorsy,
naturey. And then the mom's like just passionate mom. And so it feels like they're all kind of polarized in their own passions, and so while it may seem like they're dysfunctional, it's like, I don't necessarily agree that they're dysfunctional. It's just that they don't know how to connect all the time. But that's the whole purpose of this film, is to learn how they connect.
And I mean, that's kind of the dysfunction that that is the focus, because it is kind of still told through Katie's perspective, is her dad doesn't understand her. And that's it, because mom gets it. Mom's supportive. Mom's there. Her and her little brother have a really good connection, throughout. And that's where it's like, to me, a dysfunctional family is, it doesn't work. Like, it'd be like calling the Addams family dysfunctional. It's like, no, they're not dysfunctional. They're a really good family. They're just weird. Like, a dysfunctional family is the dad's always out fishing and doesn't give a crap about his kids. That kind of a thing. Like, the family still tries to be together. They're all trying to get to spend time with each other. It just doesn't quite jive how everybody wants to do it. Like, one of the opening scenes where the Katie's like, "Dad, do you want to see my cool little video?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm in the middle of doing this thing. Look, it's a duck or whatever." And it's like, she's like, "Yeah, that's cool." And she's like, heartbroken thing comes up and she walks away, and it's like, he's trying to connect with her the way he connects, and she's trying to connect with him the way she connects, and it just doesn't jive. And that's the only thing that doesn't function. Outside of that, the family functions really well, I think. So, and the family functions really well, but they are themselves. And like Nugget said, they are each uniquely themselves. And I think those characters are really funny, interesting, creative. When the kid's looking through the phone book and he's calling people up, "Hi, do you want to talk about moving with dinosaurs?" "Okay, thanks, bye." Click. Calls up the next person. "Hi, do you want to talk to me about dinosaurs?" Like,
and to me, I think that's with the character development in this film. Like, to me, that's what really is interesting and pulls me in and like gets me interested in wanting to follow this journey, is because they are so themselves, and I want to know more.
Realistic characters.
But, I don't know if I'd say realistic necessarily. They're interesting, or
and they're unapologetically themselves.
Yes,
like, I like this, and I'm gonna like this, and I don't really care what other people say. Like, oh, if people make fun of me because I like dinosaurs, whatever. I like dinosaurs. That's going to be a thing that is, right? And that's how you're going to leave it. So it's just confidence in who they are as people, and I think that shows through from the writing. Like, the writers, I think, really understand characters in comedy and did a really good job at building those out. Like, this is a really entertaining, funny movie just because of that. Mm-hmm. Like,
I'll agree with that there were some pretty funny moments.
Yeah.
The dinosaur bit that you mentioned, but the one that I think is funny is the Wi-Fi. Let's see what happens if I turn off the Wi-Fi. And then it shows basically the world in chaos, freaking out about Wi-Fi. And the robot's like, "Look, free Wi-Fi here." And everyone jumps into the robot just to get free Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's kind of where we're at.
Well, and the main villain being the personal assistant on the tech CEO's phone, and she doesn't transition out of that. She just stays in the phone the whole time, where it's like, "I'm angry. I want to flop around violently on the table. Put me down there." And then she just vibrates and flops around. Like, they kind of get that, the humor side of that really well. And it shows, like, it really is funny. There's, time after time after time where it's just funny and you're just laughing because you're like, okay, great.
Yeah, and the thing that I enjoyed about this, with all the comedic bits, is it's just scattered throughout the entire show, like from start to finish. Yeah. And so, like, I never felt like, oh, like, here's a kind of boring, dull sequence, and I'm starting to think about other things. It's like, they weren't like deep comedic things or long drawn out. Like, it was just like little spikes, like, consistently throughout, that just keeps your attention. And they were good. Like, they were just like, oh, that was kind of cheesy. Like, I feel like most of them were pretty good.
Yeah, and it's the comedy of errors that the comedy is really kind of the engine that drives the story throughout. Like, tech apocalypse comes through, robots are taking over the world, trying to get rid of people because the robot AI had her heart broken because she wasn't useful anymore. But it's really just the bumbling group kind of making it through, and that's, they're not competent, they're not capable, but their bumbling is the comedy that drives it. And every step and every turn, that's what it is. That's what progresses it through. So, and ultimately saves the day because their pug, the robots can't tell if it's a dog, a pig, or a loaf. And then they just break, and...
But, like, that's brilliant. Like, come on. Like, that's a great premise.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if it appeals to everyone, but it appealed to me.
Yeah. And I mean, the target is, it's an animated kids movie. The target is kids, but it wants to be entertaining for adults as well. And so it's got that.
Like, so, like, the first time I watched this, like, was with my family, and I was just like, okay, another Netflix animated show we're going to watch. Like, this will be cool. Yay. Yeah. But, like, I was like, oh my God, this is, like, I enjoyed watching this. Like, it doesn't happen. It happens not as often as I would like it to. So I was very surprised and happily surprised with it.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, it's simple comedy. When they're running from the Furbies and the one robot that's on their side the thing falls on it and she runs back and saves it. And as they're running away, it's like, are you my mom now? Like, it's a simple thing, but it shows the progression of the robot characters that does play into the story later on. But it's also just funny that in that moment, are you my mom now? Like, just, simple, clean, and it works.
So, with as good of writing as this movie is, something that was kind of getting annoying was I don't know what it's called, but it's the idea that, oh, nothing fun ever happens at college, and then the next scene is, oh, this is the greatest day of my life at college, or the phone event's just going to be a boring, stupid event, or whatever they say in the movie, and then it cuts to the next scene of, oh, this is the greatest event in the whole world, and everyone's excited. That was getting annoying because as that was happening, I'm just like, you guys wrote this great film, and now you're just like...
It's a contrast.
It's the sarcasm joke, the contrast joke that,
And it was happening a lot, and it was just... every time it was happening, I'm just thinking, this is annoying. You wrote a well-made, funny movie, and then these are what is detracting from it and making it not as great. And so that was becoming annoying the more that it was happening throughout the film.
Well, and that's a lot of the negative for me is the writing is great, the comedy is hilarious, the characters are fantastic and confident and enjoyable. The story is just cliche and trite, and you can kind of tell what's going to happen before it happens because you've seen this story 1,000 times before. And that's not the point of the movie, But, the point is the humor, and they pull that off really well. But it seems like the creative effort went into things not story related. And it does pull you out. And it's kind of like, oh, hey, let's just keep doing the same joke over and over again, or the same style of joke. If it doesn't hit, it doesn't hit.
So with that, I would say watching it the first time, I didn't feel like that. Like, I think watching it the first time, it was enjoyable, and like you could see the humor. But I felt like it was just kind of a fun movie that I just could just naturally go along with it. Now, rewatching it before this podcast and watching it by myself,
yeah,
I feel like it was a very different experience. It was still funny, but it definitely wasn't the same. I feel like this is a film that like is more geared to watching with people than not, and I'll completely agree that the plot, at least the underlying plot and the story, like it's nothing groundbreaking, and that's why I say that I feel like the comedy is like really what is like the cream on this. And when you skim that off the top, then you're not really left with much.
Yeah, if you were to balance it out, I think the comedy outweighs the fact that the story's not strong. Like, the story's not bad, it's just not strong or new or unique or as interesting as the other comedy. Like I said, I think their creative efforts went into the gags and the jokes and the characters, rather than, hey, let's make this story unique, or let's tell this story in a unique way.
They had good characters, or at least they developed the characters the way they did.
Yeah.
Because if that wasn't there, like, it would be, it would be terrible. Even if all the comedy was the same, if they didn't develop the characters in the way that they did, I think it would be a much worse film.
To your point earlier, where you saw it before with your family and then watching it again, it was difficult to watch. A different experience.
It didn't hit as hard.
I've seen bits and pieces of this a dozen times because of my kids. I had never watched it through until I watched it for the podcast. But I'd seen most of it probably several times because my kids always have it on. And it's hilarious that sitting and watching it on my own, like I probably wouldn't have finished this. And it's like, and I understand why every time my kids start watching it and I'm sitting there with them, I just get up and wander off and do something else, is because it's not enough to keep my interest, and I'm not the target audience, so it's not a huge negative, but I think my kids are kind of the same way with it too. Like, they hit a point where it's like, oh, this is a funny part, and then I'm going to go off and play with my toys, and then it'll get to another funny part, and then I'm paying attention again because it's funny. And, it's more like, here's the gags, we know where they're at, let's just get to them. Which a lot of action movies do that too, where it's like, hey, here's all the stunts we want to put into it, and the story just somehow connects the dots between them to get the characters into these situations. Mm-hmm. So, and that's where I say the comedy is really that engine. It's the vehicle that drives that. And it's not terrible, but it would be nice to see the same level of effort put into with the story as it was put into the comedy or the characters, those kinds of things. So, but it's also a kids' movie, so it's hard.
Exactly.
It's hard to judge it, right?
For what it is, I think it's pretty good.
Well, and for me, it's like my kids, it's okay with it because they haven't seen this kind of story their entire lives. I have, but I think that's kind of that's the opportunity that storytellers and filmmakers have, is this is kind of low-level fruit, right? We know the jokes are going to hit because we know it's animated. The kids are going to like it. We know we're going to have these kinds of things in there. Let's experiment with some of this more. Let's change these things up because, otherwise it just feels like a cash grab. Like, oh, we know, just follow the same formula and away we go. Like, it'd be nice to see just some chances taken there a little bit more, but I also understand why they don't do it. Like, I mean, that's the thing, is it's a business, and it's just, turn these things out.
Do you want a $50 million film or a $100 million film?
Some of the sequences were dramatically different. Like, the whole mall sequence with the Furbies. They didn't have the rights to Furbies locked down, so they rewrote that in several different ways to kind of accomplish the same goals, where they kind of had like a Tickle Me Elmo variant was kind of the leader of the toys taking over. And so it could have gone a different way and still been funny. And that's the thing, seeing some of those where it's like, what you did in the movie was hilarious. What you could have done was hilarious. Like, they were on point with the writing in that and the comedy. I think, it's kudos to them. But
These ones are two small negatives. The first one is the voice actor for the brother. I felt like he was too old. Like the character that he voiced was too old. Like, it didn't quite fit the younger brother vibe. And that was becoming more and more noticeable as the movie progressed. That was starting to take me out. Because I just felt that, not that the voice actor himself was bad, but just his choice of voice acting wasn't fitting for the younger brother. And so that was one.
That's my favorite character, so.
I'm not saying that he's a bad character.
Age, so
Yeah, he's the director.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's kind of my point, is that he didn't choose to do I shouldn't say that. He probably did choose to make a younger kid, but it wasn't as young as I think it should have been. And so, yeah, I think the character's great. I just think the voice acting should have been a little younger in the choice to fit.
Interesting, because my thoughts on the voice acting is Katie, the main character, is not voiced by Emma Stone, but sounds like Emma Stone, and it was really confusing for a while. Fantastic job. And she's one of the actresses from Broad City, I understand, on Comedy Central. Very funny, but it was weird to hear that, that's not Emma Stone, but it sounds like you're trying to be Emma Stone, so.
And then the final small one was the really weird incorporation of real videos or real photos into this.
Yeah.
Like the
howler monkey.
The monkey at the zoo, and then the portrait of the family, the stock photo in the picture frame.
Yeah.
It just felt weird because it was only used like once or twice, but they still did it, and so
I liked it. It's a funny debate me and my kids have, because I always call the show The Amazing World of Gumball. I always say that's animated. My kids are like, no, it's not. It's 3D. It's real life, because it's got a mix of those kinds of things. They throw all that kind of stuff in there. So my kids don't agree that it's an animated show. Like, they think it's 3D, or it's like, okay, kids, you're trying to classify cartoon in weird ways because they incorporate those things. But yeah, no, I did like that style, because it shows it's taken a while, especially when it comes to kids movies, where people understand the change in culture. And so it fits more with kind of the YouTube generation, I think. And that's all of that stuff, because that's, she wants to go to film school, but none of the things she creates are films. Usually, I mean, she does make the movies with the pug, the officer, the pug cop or whatever it was, dog cop.
Yeah.
Which I would pay to see those movies, because those seem hilarious. But also, like, that reminds me of the movies that I made when I was in high school. Like, that's what we did. I mean, in fact, police officers is what we did. The style of the things that she puts into her little clips and videos for friends and family, and the stuff she's trying to show her family with stuff she's made, it all fits a more modern content creation style, which I appreciate, because it's somebody who understands that, rather than, an 85-year-old trying to explain to a 20-year-old what the internet is. Like, there are still some of those kinds of things, like the Wi-Fi thing. It's a funny joke, and you forgive it because it's the joke, but if you know how the internet works, and if you're an adult who pays for things, like, that it's not just like, oh, the Wi-Fi's out, what do I do? Like, you'll reset your router. Like, things you've had to deal with as an adult. It's different, but again, not made for, that's not the target. That's not who it's for. And I do appreciate that they don't sacrifice the joke for the sake of realism, because it's funnier to have the joke than it is to be like, here, it's real. This is
Yeah,
how
and
the internet works. So
and most of the comedic jokes in this film are ones that like you're not trying to look too deep. Like,
yeah,
and that's one thing I do appreciate with this film is like I don't feel like I was trying to scrutinize all of the humor. I just let it roll off the back. That's why I feel like it was whimsical with most of it, because like I didn't feel like I had to take it seriously because of the way that the tone of the film was, how it unfolded.
there's some of those things that it's more just I want to elevate storytelling more. And so for me, one of those things that's not scrutinized, it's the special maneuver the dad has when he's trying to teach the daughter how to drive stick, even though she's not driving, he is. And then somehow she understands how to drive stick later on in the movie. Gear. Well, yeah. And he's got his whole little story about it, like down the river, blah, 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 blah. And then somehow he jumps over the overpass. And it's like, this is your special maneuver? Like, do you use this in the, like, just the way that movies do shifting in cars, that needs to change. It's one of those things to like elevate the story by changing the way you say it. Like, okay, great. I don't know how, like, I don't know how you'd specifically change that other than don't shift the vehicle 5,000 times, like, while you're dodging things and jumping over stuff. Like, yeah, it was just weird and strange. And
I'll give you that. Yeah.
And that's, I guess, a good place to transition into changes, unless anybody else wants to trash on the movie anymore. Because I think that would be that's my change. It's kind of my dislike change. It's usually the case with at least one of us. I really want to see people elevate storytelling and change it, and do things differently and unique. And it just feels like a missed opportunity where comedy hits so well. The writing, the characters, the performances, it's all great. But it just feels like it feels too familiar, and I want it to feel different and unique. Like, it's like, yeah, walking around my neighborhood's nice, but you know what? Walking around Venice is also nice, and it's nice in a different way. And that's what I, want to see. And I think kids' movies are a great avenue to test those out and to change those things, because kids don't grow up and they're not jaded like me, where it's like, oh, I know how all of these movies are going to end because I know that it clicked to what story you're telling now. Like, oh, that's the bad guy, because of course that's the bad guy. That's the way you do that. Like, I'm saying that kids are impressionable and pliable, and you can mold them. It's a chance not taken because it's safe to make the movie, and that's that. Which I don't discredit people for making that choice. The safe choice is the safe choice for a reason. It'd be nice to see people take more chances.
Yeah, and I think it's unfortunate because, when you look at movies, and we've talked clearly with this movie that, the comedy hits well, and the characters hit well, but in a lot of movies, a lot of the time writers resort back to what they think kids are going to find as funny. And that's usually like toilet humor. And it gets old because when you're a parent who has to take your kid to see the movie because that's what they want to see, you don't find the movie enjoyable because there is no good comedy to a movie. And I think a lot of the time it does come down to similar situations with the story, where they've been making movies for basically 100 years. And when you just get stuck in the same writing and the same storytelling and the same, it would be nice to see if people can change the narrative and branch out and try and tell more unique stories.
To me, it's the stakes are low with these kinds of movies, and that's why you can take those chances, because if it doesn't work out, oh no, it doesn't work out, but you've still got the fart jokes to make kids laugh. So it still works. So, I think that would be a good kids' movies or kind of these genres are a good space to experiment with some of those kinds of things to see how well they work. Because the reason that there's only so many stories is because they work.
But to be fair, I don't feel like this was a fart joke movie.
No, and no. But that's the point, is that this one had well-made jokes and comedy in it. But when you do get a lot of those movies, whether it's Disney or Pixar or DreamWorks or whatever, Illumination is another one, where when that's just kind of what your shtick is, where you don't take time to write out the comedy, write out a funny, well-made joke, and you just fall back on it's a dick joke, or it's a poo joke, or a fart joke, or whatever joke. It's like, okay, but it's not funny. Yeah. And you might get a laugh or two out of a kid, but then they move on and they don't care about the movie anymore or whatever. So,
I mean, I'll completely agree with you on trying to push the constructiveness of the storyline. I think that'd be great. But I'm not gonna discredit the movie. The biggest negative that did stand out to me while watching this was how cookie cutter the plot line was.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing, honestly, that's probably the only real negative that really stood out to me.
Well,
or at least glaring negative.
On the scale of negatives, this is not bad by any stretch of the imagination. Like, it's like, hey, let's take this safe platform and make something great on top of it. Like, it's spicing up a traditional dish. Like, instead of it just being, oh, here's steak, here's some seasoning on it that, adds it to it. Like, it's still good. It's just better with the seasoning on it. So,
yeah.
But it is kind of the only detractor I would really say to it. I agree with that it's just cookie cutter and it's just formulaic and it's more of a it's less of a this is a problem and more of a I would like to see.
Exactly. Sort of yeah, I'd agree with that. So I wouldn't necessarily say that it's like, oh my God, this is terrible because they do everything that everyone else does. But they do, like, all the comedic features and character development, everything we've already talked about. I think they did a great job with that. And so, ladling that on top of just kind of your cookie cutter plot line, I think it was a good show. Like, it works well, and especially for a kid's show. And so I'm not going to discredit it, but like, if they pushed the boundaries and did make an amazing new ventures into story writing that came out, like, maybe it could have been an amazing show, or maybe it would have been really sucky terrible because no one connected with it because of it.
All I'll say is it's important to carry a screwdriver around all the time because that saved the world in this movie.
Well, no, it has to be
it's very specific.
A Roman head number 3 or something.
Whatever it was. Which was strange. And again, not dysfunctional if the entire family listens to the dad and carries around their specific Christmas gift, unique screwdriver, because...
Christmas gift, a wedding anniversary
gift.
And I can't remember what the brother's was.
Is it a birthday or a... Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what his was.
Anyway. Yes, they all got this unique screwdriver, and they all kept it and had it on them at all times because, again, it's a very functional family because they get functional gifts. And on that function, we're going to wrap this one up. Let us know in the comments what you guys think of the Mitchells versus the Machines, what you think of what would you change. Tell us what your changes would be, and we will catch you guys in the next one. Adios.
See ya.